Isaac and Rebekah choose to stay in Abimelech's land. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because Isaac tells all the people, oh, this is my sister. Where did he learn that? Again, I told you it was 2.0, right? And so just as Abraham had said, Sarah is my sister, not my wife, so you don't have to kill me. Now, next generation is happening. Deja vu all over again, right? It's happening. And now Isaac is saying to people that Rebekah is my sister. Well, Abimelech notices at one point that there's no way they're brother and sister. This is husband and wife. This family, they did it again, right? So he confronts Isaac about it and says, come here, what are you doing? Your dad did the exact same thing to me. And Isaac could probably say, well, yeah, because he was in the exact same danger. I was worried about this. And like we talked last week, Abimelech is such a wonderful person. Philistine king notwithstanding, amazing person with innocency and integrity as defining features. Well, he hasn't changed as time has gone on. And so when he confronts Isaac about this, he says in verse 10, what is this thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have lain with thy wife, and thou shouldst have brought guiltiness upon us. I love that. Last time it was innocency of my hands and integrity of my heart. Here again, we're innocent. You could have brought guilt. And people would have lightly committed a sin that is heavy upon us. There's nothing light about adultery, about immorality. We learned that in Sodom and Gomorrah. We learned it in Abimelech's concern over what was taking place with Abraham. We can't let it happen here. To me, it's interesting the way he puts it. And to me, it speaks of our needing to be extremely careful about the way we bend rules, because it might lead other people to completely break them. Again, like with Abraham, well, the first time we saw it, it came from as a command from God. Here, I don't know if that's still the case. If Isaac just grew up on fun stories about mom and dad and how they trickster, right? How they tricked the Egyptians and the Philistines, I don't know. And so this is family tradition. This is how it works. We're going to do the same. I don't know. Or if it's a matter of, it wasn't completely dishonest on mom and dad's part because they were related, and sister is an encompassing term. And since my dad and my wife's grandpa were brothers, then I don't know how the cousins and how many removed that is, but we're brother and sister too in the general term. So we're not lying. We're bending the truth to preserve ourselves. But again, from Abimelech's perspective, you bending would have led to our people breaking. And such things ought not to be. There might be times where you are doing something iffy, and you know you're justified. The ox is in the mire, for example. But I do worry sometimes about people that are watching and seeing you bend a rule, and in their mind, it's no different than them breaking it. I was going to go to a party when I was in high school, senior year, and I didn't go to many parties because this was LA, and I mostly non-member friends, and I knew what kinds of things were happening at the parties. In fact, sometimes my non-member friends would tell me, Halverson, awesome party this weekend that you're not going to want to come to, just FYI. And I'd always laugh and thank you for looking out for me. If I'm not supposed to be there, you probably shouldn't go either, but to each his own. Now, in this case, this party I wanted to go, senior year, and last time I'll get to see these friends. And I remember my dad just expressing his concern about me going to this party. And I remember defending myself and my honor and saying, Dad, I don't, anything in the word of wisdom smells bad to me. So it's not even a temptation. Okay. I'm not going to do anything bad at this party. And my dad's response, I'll never forget. He said, it's not you I'm worried about. I was like, huh? See, at the time, my dad was in the stake presidency, and he said, people know you in the stake, the youth do, and I just worry that some might go to the party since you're going. I can picture them saying to their parents, come on, Mom and Dad, Jared's going. Why can't I go? Oh, okay. Well, President Halverson's son's going to be there. It must be okay. And the concern was, what if the word of wisdom is a temptation to them? What if immorality is something they need to be on the watch out for? I know you're not going to break the rules, son. I just don't want other people to be led down a path they might have taken it lightly. They might take the dangers lightly. And you might bring guiltiness upon them, even as you remain guiltless yourself. It's something to ponder. At least it had me pondering as a high school senior, and no, I didn't go to the party and didn't miss anything. Now, verse 11, Abimelech, now fully in the know, charged all his people, saying, "He that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." That's how serious this is. Don't take it lightly. I'm taking it heavily, okay? And you should too. Morality is a life and death kind of thing. Then verse 12 and 13, Isaac sowed in the land and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. And the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great. Oh, you didn't have to go to Egypt, see? Yes, in Egypt you would have survived. You could have used whatever money you had to purchase grain from the Egyptians. But here, in spite of famine, trusting that God would allow the rain to fall, it's your own property. It's your own crops. And instead of just purchasing food from others, you are now producing 100-fold, which is more than you could eat. You see, covenant, you're in a place where you can now feed other people. That's what it's all for. Now 14, he had possession of flocks and possession of herds, great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. And how did they work out that covetousness? For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. Talk about grabbing the heel and pulling somebody back, right? Talk about trying to tear others down. But that doesn't lift you up. God will still provide. So fill somebody else's wells with earth. Stop them up. Stop the channel. Oh, God can't bless you now. Oh, you want to bet? And God continues to pour down blessings that he would have been willing to share with you too if you hadn't been so covetousness of what you didn't have. Now, verse 16, Abimelech says to Isaac, "Go from us, for thou art much mightier than we." And Isaac departs. Now, this is interesting because, wait, I thought we had a covenant. Well, yeah, but, well, speaking of Abraham 2.0, this sounds like Abraham and Lot, and we need to divide since there's not room enough for both of us to prosper. And the Philistines are now worried. They're envious of Isaac, as they were envious of Abraham. And now we try to get in the way of Abraham, or can't get in the way of Isaac. Well, we'll try. Separate. Okay? And so he does. I'm big enough to be small. I would rather just lose something physical rather than lose some kind of relationship that is worth holding on to. So then in 18, Isaac digged again the wells of water, which they had digged in the days of Abraham, his father. For the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. So repeat there. He called their names after the names by which his father had called them. So again, I'm going to be like my father. I like this. Let me reopen the channels through which God can bless us. Let me reopen the covenant channel. Let me keep pursuing the covenant path. Remember, he said earlier, he said he went forward. I love that. He didn't go backwards. Forget Lot's wife, or remember her, that is. I moved forward. And I'm going to move forward along the covenant. I'm going to renew the source by which God's blessings can flow. We can't allow the blessings God gave to our fathers to be dammed. Okay, we're not going to plug the hole. We're not going to fill the well with earth. Are we making sense of these symbols? We want to make sure the blessings continue to flow forward. I'm going to unkink the hose, redig the well. I'll put the same names on them that my father did. I want the Abrahamic covenant to continue to bless the whole world as it was intended to. And that's the only reason God is choosing me to choose everyone else. So 19 to 22, Isaac's servants keep digging new wells, and then Abimelech's servants keep coming back to take them over. Remember, we saw the same thing back in Abraham's day also, that Abimelech's servants and his servants were fighting over wells, and Abraham would just say, look, can we get on the same page here? Here's the 7 ewe lambs, Beersheba, right? We studied all that last week. Well, it's happening all over again. And like father, like son, Isaac is turning the cheek. You wanted that well that we just dug. Fine, we'll go elsewhere. And they dig a new well. And the Abimelech people come and they take over that well too. Oh, sorry. Let's try a third time. And finally, the third time, they're left alone with the well that they are digging. In 22, Isaac says, "For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." Great statement. Not room enough for all of us? Well, then God will make room for us. He will carve out space where he can bless us so that we can continue to bless the whole world, including those that didn't think there was room enough for both of us. Then 23 and 24. Isaac went up from thence to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared unto him the same night, and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. At what point does the God of our fathers become our God? At what point does our parents' testimony become our own personal testimony? And like we talked 2 weeks ago, at what point is the Abrahamic covenant become a covenant with Isaac far more directly? When does it become a direct renewal upon us, right? When we're sealed and find our covenant companion? Well, in verse 25, then, he builded an altar there, just like Dad would have, right? Wherever he went. And Isaac called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. Just like Dad was always in the business of building altars, Isaac always seems to be in the business of digging wells. And yes, they're both doing both, okay? And to me, again, there's some beautiful symbolism there that if an altar is a mini mountain of the Lord, this outcropping of stones that you've set up, and a well then is heading in the opposite direction. Climb high or dig deep, but either way, find access to the blessings of God. Climb your way to heaven and offer him things. Or dig your way into the earth itself and find the source of living water that's always been down beneath you, ready to bubble up and give you life. I love these altars and wells that characterize the life of Abraham and Isaac. We'll see more of it in Jacob, with Jacob's well, that even Jesus drank from. Then 26 and 27. Abimelech comes down to him, seeks him out after he just kicked him out of the territory. And Isaac asks him, Wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me and have sent me away from you? It's like, whoa, hate, that's a strong word. Well, there just wasn't big enough for everyone. My people were envying yours, and maybe it was even out of respect. If you get far enough, maybe my people will leave you alone, as they seem to be beginning to. I'm sorry about this. I know we've made a covenant, and my people haven't been keeping it. Thank you for keeping it on your side. Thank you for keeping the peace, even though it hasn't always been easy. It takes two to tango. Thanks for being the one that refused to be two. Okay? So verse 28, Abimelech says, We saw certainly that the Lord was with thee. And we said, Let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee. Let us make a covenant with thee, that thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace. Thou art now the blessed of the Lord. Now again, there's a little irony there. We've done nothing but good to thee? I picture Isaac like, well, that's debatable, but I'll take it. If this is, even without an apology, I'll forgive you. If this is your attempt to make an oath and at least to move forward, then I'll let bygones be bygones. And I'll make that oath with you, which he does. In fact, he more than an oath, he makes a feast. Verse 30, he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink. In fact, with that, Abimelech and his people end up leaving after having made the oath, and that's the day that they strike water in that well that they're digging. Which to me again says something. If you'll just let it go. Yeah, we've already lost 2 wells. But better to lose a well than a friendship. And it's to preserve the relationship. Turn the other cheek. Make a promise even though they haven't always kept theirs in the past. Give them a chance. And give to people that just seem to keep on taking. Now, I know there needs to be a limit to this, right? and not to be codependent or enablers. There's the Lord's law of war that we studied last year in the Doctrine and Covenants is clear on this. But whenever possible, be big enough to be small, and turn that cheek and preserve the relationship. And again, what I love about this one is they keep taking our wells. Well, let them have it. God will provide. And sure enough, the day that they establish this covenant of peace, they strike water. God always comes through. Then finally, verse 34 and 35, this chapter ends with some bad news, and it's back to Esau. We kind of lost sight of him in this chapter. The previous one ended with him selling his birthright, showing that he despised it. He didn't care. He menospreciared it. Okay. And here we see it again. 34 and 35. Esau was 40 years old. Good time to get married if you ask his dad. 40 years old when he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Well, wouldn't this be cause for rejoicing? No. Notice they were both daughters of Hittites, which means they're not in Abraham's extended family line. These are children of the Canaanites. This is marriage outside the covenant. No wonder the chapter ends, which were a grief of mind unto Isaac and to Rebekah. How could he keep the covenant when he's marrying outside of it? How can he pass the covenant down to posterity when his posterity cannot be born within the covenant? Did Esau not understand all the work that his grandfather went through to send his servant all the way back to his mother's family in Haran? Don't send Isaac there. Bring someone back. Don't descend to their level. Find someone that has ascended to God's level and bring them out of that place. And even here in the promised land, Esau is marrying outside of God's promises. Yeah, grief of mind, you better believe it. In fact, we'll see later just how much grief that brings to Rebekah, especially. We'll see that here in chapter 27. So turn the page, and here we get another story, and this that we know, a famous one, and it's a tricky one. Honestly, I've been wrestling with this one, like, man, why does this have to be so confusing and so ambiguous? I wish we could simplify it. I think sometimes we're tempted to. We'll talk more about this. I want us to leave some space open for the difficulty here, though. Both the pros and the cons, the strengths and the weaknesses, since I know I have both. So we can safely assume that Isaac has both, and Rebekah has both, and Jacob has both. And we'll see next week, Esau definitely has both. We've been focusing on his negatives. Next week, we'll see his beautiful positives. Hold on for that one. It is a redemptive story as far as Esau is concerned. It's awesome, okay? Don't miss next week. But in this one, when we see Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob as the unmitigated good guys, well, we all have character flaws and things that we need to be working on. And we'll see both good and bad in all of them today in chapter 27. Well, verse 1, it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see. Now, you have to ask yourself, is he losing physical sight alone? Or is he starting to get a little cloudy in his spiritual vision? It's hard to tell. Again, earlier, if it was, I love Esau because of his venison, is this just, I'm a barbecue fan, or I need a son who can defend my people? Hard to tell. But with some kind of eyesight issue, he tells Esau, I'm getting old. I don't know how much longer I have, and I want to pass down my blessing upon you. I said earlier, what's the difference between the birthright and the blessing? Does Isaac know about the transaction that took place over the mess of pottage? I don't know. Jacob already has purchased the birthright. Esau easily sold it to him for pennies on the dollar. How does that relate to this blessing? Now, birthright is going to be leading the family and receiving the double portion. Blessing also seems to include some kind of spiritual strength. This is more of the covenant side of things, perhaps. But to whatever degree they They overlap or are distinguished. There's probably a Venn diagram somewhere in here. Whatever it is, Isaac sends Esau out to go hunt, to bring back some venison and make it just like I like it, so I can bless you before I die. Well, verse 5, Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And now that he's off camera, Rebekah can rush back to Jacob and say, Jacob, time is of the essence. We only have, how long does it take your brother usually to find some meat to bring back? How long does the hunt usually last? Well, whatever it is, we have to move. I need you to go get some goats out of the flock, bring them in, and I'm going to cook your dad the ultimate dinner, just like he likes it. Believe me, I know the recipe. And with meal in hand, I want you to go to your father to receive that father's blessing. It needs to be yours, not Esau's. Now, this is where it gets tricky for Jacob. And it makes me wonder if Rebekah has said anything about this before or not. Again, we get a clue from the mess of pottage that maybe Jacob knows he's supposed to be in charge, but this one is like, I don't know, Mom. Or maybe it's like, birthright's enough for me and I'll still lead out, but blessing? Yeah, let Esau have it. It's his. Either way, Jacob says to his mom in verse 11, behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man. You practically named him after that. I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver. And I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. In other words, Mom, I don't want to live up to my name in that way. I can't drag Esau down like that. I can't deceive my father. I can't pull his leg. Because if I do and he finds out, then there's a curse on its way instead of a blessing. In some ways, this reminds me of the Ham and Canaan story we studied with Noah. There's right ways and wrong ways to get blessings, and I can't go about it in the wrong way. Now, this is where it gets interesting for Rebekah. Verse 13, right on the heels, no pun intended, of Jacob saying, I'm going to get cursed for this, Mom. Then unapologetically and unafraid, mother says to son, upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice and go fetch me them. Now, that's gutsy on the part of Rebekah. If there's a curse involved, then I'll take it. Now, huge risk, which and totally fearless in the face of risk, which suggests that Rebekah believes there will be no curse. Now, what would give her that kind of confidence? Oh yeah, I received a revelation when you were, even before you were born. My knowledge of you precedes my even coming to see you. I knew who God was sending. I had my divine ultrasound, and I knew not only that you and your brother would be forthcoming, but that you, little brother, would be in charge of your older one. That is God's will, and I'm going to make sure that it happens. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. Well, I know that this is what Isaac's supposed to do. I know he is supposed to give you the birthright and the blessing, that you're supposed to be in charge, but his eyes are dim. I worry about his spiritual sight. I worry if it's been clouded by preference instead of principle. And if he just wants to do it his way, I'm going to make sure that he does it God's way. Now, that might be the most amazing thing or the worst thing. And it's really hard to tell. In some ways, it reminds me of Eve and the choice made in Eden. I'm going to make sure we do the right thing. And the right thing is partaking of this fruit and doing something that looks wrong in order to bring ultimate rightness out of it. And so I partook, and then I invited Adam to partake, and he partook of it too. Good will come of this. No curse. I'm so confident in that I will take your place in the cursing if there ever is one. Now, as we suggested back then with Eve and Adam, if there, to whatever degree it was beguiling, and to whatever degree there was transgression or mistake there, I would say, as I did then, that it was making a unilateral decision with bilateral consequences. It was choosing on her own when her decision affected Adam as much as it affected her. I wonder if there's a similar lesson here where, Rebekah, trust your husband. Yeah, he might really like barbecue, but he's an honorable man that prioritizes the promises of God. Don't you see what? I'm sure he wanted to keep all those wells with Abimelech too, but he gave up on his personal preference in order to keep the covenants of God. He'll do the same thing here. Talk to him. Did you ever tell him about your spiritual impression? I vouchsafed that revelation to you. Now, of all times, you need to share it. Trust that he who entreated God for you will also trust in what God gave directly to you. Talk to him. We have no evidence that she did. Well, in this case, she proceeds with her plan. 14 through 17, she makes the food, puts Esau's clothing upon Jacob, even gets some goat skin to put on Jacob's hands and neck, so that just in case Dad feels you, you'll be as hairy as your big brother. Now, there's different varieties of goat, and so don't think too much of a hairy beast here, but rather, okay, more than just the smooth Jacob, all right? Well, verse 18, Jacob came unto his father and says to him, "My father?" Isaac responds, "Here am I." "Who art thou, my son?" Now, he was just, somebody, I can't see, but somebody just referred to me as father, so it must be one of my sons, but which one is it? It's hard to tell, okay? I can't see. Are my ears playing tricks on me? Verse 19, Jacob said unto his father, "I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me." Now, this sure seems like a bold-faced lie. Is this Jacob just being the trickster? Is this Jacob just honoring mother's wishes and going against what he would have preferred? Again, we see humanity here, okay? Justifiable if we're thinking of Rebekah making sure God's will is done. But again, is it a matter of, I don't know. I'm wrestling with this. I'm still wrestling with this, okay? Because yes, I know. She knows. She's had her revelation. The younger will be in charge of the older, and I'm going to make sure it happens. But remember when Abraham was like, "God, I know you're going to give me posterity, and since I can't give it to you, then take my servant." And God's like, "Thanks for the suggestion. Don't need your help." Next chapter, Sarah, "I'm the weak link in the chain then. Since I can't give Abraham seed, then take Hagar and then raise up seed." And God's like, "Thanks for the help. Don't need it." Here again, is it a matter of Rebekah? You don't have to take matters into your own hands. This is a fine line. This is a proving of contraries. And I'm just trying to find the Goldilocks zone here. To what degree do we exercise our agency to make sure that God's will is done? And on the other hand, to what degree do we honor God's wishes and know that he is able to perform it? Okay? That what he has promised, he is able to perform. A great phrase we saw last week. Oh, Rebekah is trying to navigate this narrow way. Jacob is trying to, is he crossing his fingers behind his back? I don't know. This one's tricky. But he does tell Dad, "I'm Esau." Then 20, Isaac said unto his son, "Well, how is it thou hast found it so quickly, my son? Wow, you're a better hunter than I thought." And his son responds, "Because the Lord thy God brought it to me." Now, there's some bending of the truth too, but is he seeing the Lord behind his mother's actions? Technically, this food came from my mom, but mom received her marching orders from God. Maybe not these specific ones, but when I was in embryo, mom knew. And so God is behind this somewhere. In verse 21, Isaac says to Jacob, "Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not." So even Dad is a little skeptical here, a little confused, like, "Well, okay, you said you're Esau. It doesn't sound much like Esau. I can't see. My eyes aren't of no help to me. My ears are saying one thing. Well, let me try a different sense. Let's go with touch. Come here and feel." And you can picture Jacob going, "Oh, thank heaven for goat skin. Mom, you're a genius." He comes forward, and in 22, Isaac felt him and said, "Well, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." 23, and he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And before he does, he asks again, art thou my very son Esau? And Jacob says, I am. So Dad says, bring it near me. Speaking of the food, I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Makes you wonder, is he trying to buy some time? Let me finish this meal first, and then I'll bless you. Because I'm really trying to figure this thing out. Earlier when it says he discerned him not, or when your eyes can't be trusted, or when your ears you're not sure about, when what you're feeling, touching, I'm going through all the senses I can think of. And I don't know, maybe even now I'm going on taste. Like, it even tastes like what Esau made. Yeah, and Mom knows the recipe. But am I trying the ultimate way to tell is going to be the gift of discernment. And he's undiscerning here. Is this again evidence of some kind of loss of spiritual sight? Clouded by preference? I don't know. Then verse 26, his father Isaac said unto him, come near now and kiss me, my son. But even that's another test, because now it's going to be the smell test. Yeah, going through every one of my 5 senses. He came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. Okay. Eyes, no help. Ears sure sounds like Jacob, but touch feels like Esau. Tastes like Esau's food. Smell smells like Esau's clothing. Okay, must be Esau. 28 and 29 then. Here comes the blessing. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren. Now that's where Rebekah would have said, okay, there's the blessing. And let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curseth thee. Blessed be he that blesseth thee. It's similar to the language that God gave in the blessing to Abraham. Now from Isaac on to Jacob, it's being passed down. So much of this is temporal, dews of heaven, fatness of the earth. Some of it is leadership. Your siblings and people will bow down to you. Now, as soon as and that's all part of the covenant, right? Posterity, promised land, priesthood, leadership, exclusivity in pursuit of inclusivity, because I know you will be inclusive. Well, 30 and 31 then came to pass as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob. And Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father. Doesn't make it for a great movie, right? The plot thickens. That Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made savory meat, and brought it unto his father, and said unto his father, let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless me. Oh, he comes in so unaware. So excited. I'm ready for that blessing, Father. Last time I was so hungry, I gave up the birthright. But this time, I know you're the one that's hungry, and I'm here to feed you and receive my promised blessing. Verse 32, Isaac his father said unto him, who art thou? And Esau said, I'm thy son, thy firstborn Esau. There's confusion meeting equal confusion here. In fact, 33, Isaac trembles very exceedingly and said, who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. Now it's dawning. Isaac's eyes are opening now. He's realizing he's been had. Somebody pulled his leg, yanked his heel. And it wasn't just Jacob, it was Rebekah too. What have I done? Now, all this trembling. By the way, one commentator pointed out, it's really interesting that we see very little of the emotion in Abraham and Isaac during the time of the sacrifice of Isaac. Remember last week when we studied it, we see a very slow and painstaking description to give us kind of time to try to plumb the depths of their emotion. But the text itself doesn't describe their emotion at all. Here you see a lot more descriptive language as far as how Isaac and Esau are feeling about this lost blessing. Isaac is trembling exceedingly. We'll see all kind of weeping on the part of Esau in just a moment. But notice the last phrase that Isaac used. I blessed him. I didn't just eat his food. I blessed him. And then that last line, yea, and he shall be blessed. He will be. I know that blessing came from God, not me. I may not have seen clearly, but I know God sees clearly, and that blessing will come through because it was given to its rightful recipient. Now is he starting to feel maybe what Rebekah had felt decades before? Is there this sense of that was right? I'll put it this way. The first year I ever taught this in seminary, we had a whole court case. And I wrote out a script and I gave it to the students and, okay, I need you to play the judge and you're some jury. I need you're Esau and you're Jacob and you're Rebekah and you're Isaac. And we actually brought all kinds of people to the witness stand as we were trying to make sense of, well, what's our verdict going to be? Did the ends justify the means? Was this the right thing to do, or the wrong way to do it? And how are we going to, it made for an interesting class discussion. But we brought people to the stand beyond the key characters. We brought, for example, Esau's 2 wives, the Hittite women. And we made them swear and testify of their lineage and what that meant as Hittites and outside the covenant. We brought a very cold bowl of pottage, some old oatmeal, just crusty and hard, as Exhibit A of just how much value Esau had placed on the birthright and its associated blessing. We brought, this was an interesting one. We even brought Peter from premortality to the witness stand. And the students were like, what? How does Peter factor into this? And well, the lawyer asked him to describe what Jesus had said to him when he gave him the sealing power, the keys of the kingdom. And we pointed out that whatsoever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, which is what Esau just admitted. I bound it on earth. It's going to be bound in heaven. But then we had Peter continue his testimony as he said, and Jesus also said, whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So, Peter, and your honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you mean to suggest that blessings you pronounce can be unpronounced? Blessings you do can be undone? Is it true that you can loose what you bind? And God will loose as well. And Peter said, yes, that's exactly what Jesus said to me. So, Isaac, could you have reversed this? Did you bind on earth unknowingly, but then once your eyes were fully open, realize that, yes, this is bound in heaven as it should be, and I'm not going to take it back, son. I'm not going to undo what I did. I did something right without even knowing it, okay? Well, the court case proceeds, or at least the drama does here that we're describing. Verse 34, when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, bless me, even me also, O my father. Like I said, this is more emotion than we ever saw in the story of Abraham and Isaac. And a father who now is trembling exceedingly, a son who is crying with an exceeding bitter cry. Father, Father, bless me too. Is there nothing left for me? Maybe here he's finally realizing, I gave up the birthright for nothing, and now not even any blessing is left for me. Is this where his eyes are fully opened to the worth of something that he had undervalued? The blessings he had taken for granted. Verse 35, Dad responds, thy brother came with subtlety and have taken away thy blessing. I thought you were the cunning one, son. Well, there was some cunning in Jacob too. 36, Esau responds, is not he rightly named Jacob? Oh, you named him for the right reason. He hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. Now, full disclosure, Esau, you sold it to him for nothing. Esau continues, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? There is such, pathos, such feeling in this. He's finally come to his senses. He finally realizes what he's lost, not once, but twice. Is that all there is? Do you not have a blessing for me? And what amazes me about God is that in his generosity, there's always a blessing. It's like the celestial kingdom, far surpassing our understanding. Infinitely greater than what we have. There's a gift. It's just infinitely less than what God had intended to give us. Even in our worst moments, when we are crying with exceeding bitterness, begging for God to bless us with something, he always does. He always does. There is yet a blessing reserved for you. And so Isaac gives it to him. 37, Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy lord. All his brethren have I given to him for servants. With corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I now do unto thee, my son? What can I give you? Well, there is something. 38, Esau says to his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So much feeling here. And father does have a blessing to give him. 39 and 40 bears so much similarity to 28 and 29. I'll put them up on the screen side by side so you can see just how similar they are. Yes, there's a blessing for you. In the first instance to Jacob, therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. And in 39 to Esau, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven. I want to give you all that I can. There will still be a portion for you, son. And as far as temporal blessings are concerned, I will bless you as abundantly as I have blessed Jacob. The difference comes down to leadership. And that I can't or won't change. In the first instance, let people serve thee. And for Esau, thou shalt serve thy brother. In fact, there's more language along those lines. It's interesting to Esau. He says, by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Now, that's an interesting one. At some point later in the future, will there be a separation between his seed, just like there was between Isaac and Ishmael? And the answer is yes, there would be a separation between Jacob and Esau. Or I should say between the Israelites and the Edomites. That's another way of saying between the Jacobites and the Esauites, okay? And that will come later. There will be a removal of the yoke. And so this, which began in conflict or competition, sadly will end in competition and conflict as well. But in the meantime, what are you two brothers going to make of this? And like I said, between what we see now and what we'll see next week, there's some redemption going on, some solving of problems. But I do see a hint of God's generosity and kindness in what Isaac just did. Yes, your brother has the birthright. He will lead. And as Rebekah knew, that was God's will from the very beginning. But I will bless you. God always has a blessing for his children and will give them as much as justice will allow and as much as mercy will provide. Well, how does Esau respond to this? I doubt he wasn't there for Jacob's blessing. So I doubt he recognized the similarities. He never got to see the chart. I wonder if he even registered that your dad just blessed you with some amazing things. Dews of heaven, the fatness of the earth. You're going to be okay. I think the only thing that he really heard was, my brother is going to be in charge of me. I'm going to serve him. And Dad said something about a sword and breaking off a yoke. Well, bring it on, little brother. Because in verse 41, Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. This was one of his last acts, it seems. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. Like I said, he's so caught up in his own anger, he can't recognize the blessings that he's just been given. He seems to have completely forgotten his own culpability. That in some ways, if this is a crime that your brother has committed against you, then sadly you are an accessory to the crime, which always seems to be the case. We tend to victimize ourselves through our sins. We are perpetrators and in victimizing ourselves. But he's forgotten that too. I'm so mad at my brother for what he's taken from me that I'm going to take it all from him. Forget my single portion and my brother's double portion. I don't even want a double portion anymore. I want the entire portion, and I will kill my brother over this. Sword, yoke, right now. Now, 42, the words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doth comfort himself, purposing to kill thee. Now, that's an interesting way to put it. Esau wants to kill you. Why? In order to comfort himself. That's an equation that just won't add up. And yet so often we think that it does. And if I can pull someone else down, then that allows me to rise above. I'll find comfort by by bringing others to share in my misery. That isn't how it works. Satan seeks that all men may be miserable like unto himself. Well, in this moment, Esau, in his hatred, in his rage, I'm going to take it out on someone, and that will get it out of my system. That will comfort me. It never does. You probably remember Brigham Young's just homely advice that if you ever get bit by a rattlesnake, you only got two options. One, chase it down to take out your frustration. Kill it because it tried to kill you. But what you do in the process? All that exercise, that venom is now coursing through your entire body. And you're the one that did it. Whereas if you just stop right in the moment and let the snake do whatever the snake's going to do, let it slither away and localize the venom, stop it from spreading, do whatever you can to get it out of you, then even if the snake lives to tell the tale, you'll live to tell it too. And that's what matters most here. Forgive. Turn the other cheek. As Isaac had with Abimelech, as Abraham had done with Lot. If you are the source of the covenant and the standard that you are trying to bring people into, there will always be haters. There will always be those that attack you. And if you haven't learned to turn the other cheek, then rather than giving them the living water, worse than kink the hose, you'll come after them. Instead of providing life, you will be offering them death, and that cannot come through a covenant son. Esau, that way just won't work. So what's mom's advice to Jacob to keep him safe? The way this story ends is fascinating. 43, now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban, my brother, to Haran. How interesting that's the one place that Isaac's never even been. It's a place that, no, I came out, and your father was never supposed to go in, but to preserve your life, maybe that's our only hope. You go in, go live with my family. And notice her unrealistic optimism. She says, tarry with him a few days, until thy brother's fury turn away. She thought that Esau's anger would blow over in a few days. Esau and Jacob do not reconcile until more than 2 decades later. It's like half their lifetime. What a tragedy. Yes, Jacob received the birthright and the blessing. Yes, he's the leader, but for the next 20 years, he's not even going to be in a position to lead his family because he's cut off from them. Could things have been different if Rebekah and Isaac had talked about this? Could things have been different if they'd sat down as a family council and explained things? And yes, Esau would have had to swallow hard with this maternal revelation. But would he have accepted it, perhaps with less anger? At least less anger directed to his brother Jacob? Or at least less justifiable anger aimed in his direction? 20 years before Jacob finally returns. Verse 45 then, until thy brother's anger turn away from thee, and he forget that which thou hast done to him, then I will send and fetch thee from thence. And then notice how she puts it. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? And that again brings us back to the story of Cain and Abel, where Eve loses both sons at the same time, one physically, one spiritually. I can't allow that to happen. So 46, Rebekah says to Isaac, probably trying to explain to him why he's about to lose his son Jacob. She says, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. That's where the Hittites are coming from. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, like Esau did, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do me? You understand, once again, this is the culminating moment in this story, because then next week we'll get on to Jacob and Rachel and Leah. What good is my life if I can't pass down the covenant? And if Jacob dies, or even if Jacob stays but ends up marrying outside the covenant the way Esau has, those are our two sons, our only two sons. And if those two kink the hose, then it doesn't matter that we didn't. It doesn't matter if we kept the covenant if they don't keep their covenant. And what's happening to our family? What kind of decisions has Esau already made that disqualified him from this? That's why you know now why I did what I did. You know that Jacob was the one that the covenant was supposed to go through him. He's a plain man. It wasn't his idea. He's complete. He's trying to be as perfect as he can be. Yes, he has things to learn, and he'll learn some next week and forward. But Isaac, you know why I thought I had to do this. And if for whatever mistakes I've made, maybe I'm already being cursed with some curse. I've lost Esau spiritually. I cannot lose Jacob physically or spiritually. So I sent him away. I'm sorry. But I know God will bring some joy out of this. Isaac, you divine laughter, you joy from God, we'll still find ourselves rejoicing someday, somehow. I don't know when. This is a hard story. I'm sorry that it's going to be a week before we get to continue it. Because like I said, the reconciliation between Jacob and Esau is one of the most beautiful moments in Genesis, and one that I don't think we spend enough time with. There will come beauty from these ashes. Now, do the ends justify the means? Only Rebekah can answer that. Only Isaac can answer that. Only Jacob and Esau can answer that. Then again, maybe you and I can answer that, though not for them. Only in our own situations. Like I said, when we did that court case in seminary, I think everyone sensed that the goal was to exonerate Rebekah and Jacob. Because they're the good guys, right? I mean, we can throw Esau under the bus. We'll see how that goes next week. But as long as Jacob and Rebekah come out unscathed, we're good to go. Well, is that oversimplifying things? Is that forcing people to be perfect in ways that they weren't and that we aren't? Like I said at the beginning, I think it's worth holding on to some of the ambiguity here in this story, because there's plenty of ambiguity for us to wrestle with in our own lives too. I am grateful for the Christ-like attributes of every person in this story. And like I said, we'll have to wait for next week to get Esau's. but he has them too. I regret all of the flaws in my character as I regret the flaws in theirs, but I'm sure they regretted their own flaws far more than we could. We've talked about this in prior years, that every attribute is a coin that has a heads and a tails. And the heads of Rebekah's coin was her, I will go and do, and I am an agent, not an object, and I will act in courage and decisiveness, and I'll make sure that God's blessings flow. I will step into that stream, and I will take hold of the covenant, and I will be in the way, and I'll make sure that God's promises are kept. Well, flip that coin, and maybe you see someone trying a little too hard to make sure God's promises are kept. Yes, he wants our help, but doesn't always need as much of it as we think. I got this. Maybe she's so decisive, and maybe she's so independent. And she was willing to turn to God directly for an understanding of, if it be so, then why am I thus? That independence is a beautiful thing. That has some potential downfalls if you don't become interdependent with your husband in decisions that matter most. So hold on to your strengths, my friends. Beware of their inherent weaknesses. If you love the heads of your coins and they have the guts, try to pick it up and just peek quickly at its related tails. And then just try to keep it heads up from that point forward. And lastly, if we shift from Rebekah to Jacob, since he's equally a part of this difficult story that we ended with, you see, as we'll see next week and the weeks following, here Jacob is on the giving end, but we'll see next week what it feels like for him to be on the receiving end of similar kinds of trickery. We'll see him receive a Leah when he expected a Rachel. We'll see him the next generation when some of his sons have betrayed another one of his sons, and there is conflict and friction and anger and covetousness, and everything that he felt with his own brother Esau is happening with his son Joseph and his other sons that betrayed him and then deceived their father with the help of some of their brothers' clothing and an animal they'd killed. Can you hear the echoes? Now, what's interesting about all of these stories is that God brings good out of them. He really does. This action will bring the birthright and the blessing to Jacob, which was God's intention. It will push Jacob off to Haran to marry within the covenant, to do what his dad never did, right? But for the same purpose, to marry within the covenant. And it's through this that he's propelled forward along the path of destiny to meet Rachel, his covenant wife. It's through the deception of his children that the whole family is saved as they go down to Egypt during their time of famine. God always brings beauty out of ashes, even if we're the ones who lit the fire. But there is some burning along the way. There's a loss along with the gain. And in Jacob's case, yes, you went forward, but you lost years and years you could have had with your mother, with your brother. And in the next story, years and years you could have spent with your covenant son, Joseph. My friends, I keep praying for the Holy Ghost to help me learn the lessons I'm supposed to learn from these stories, and that he'll do the same for you. This one doesn't have the same sense of closure that a lot of other stories do. Next week, I think we'll provide some of it when we see Jacob and Esau reconcile. And it's such a beautiful story. We only saw Esau's tails today. We'll see his heads next week. And there's heads in all of us. I'm grateful for a God that recognizes that and holds out hope for us all. There's tails in all of us too. And maybe that's why this kind of story doesn't sit quite so well with us, because my own flaws and weaknesses don't sit very well with me either. But they're there. And maybe it's not wise to wish away the warts on saintly people in the Old Testament that still were human, because it's not wise to wish away my warts either, or at least not wise to pretend that they're not present. I know where I fall short, just as I'm starting to see or trying to make sense of places where other people fall short too. We need a more nuanced, more sophisticated view of Scripture, evidently, instead of just the blacks and whites that we grow up and just assume that people are perfect or perfectly flawed. We're all somewhere in the middle. We're humans, and thankfully, God is aware of that. Thankfully, he sent his Son to come down to see and recognize what we've done, but also what we're up against. To recognize what we've done, but also recognize what we're trying to do as we try to make sense of ends and means and how best to accomplish them. And where's God in all of this? He's trying to guide us. I pray we'll turn to him. I pray we'll be more discerning. I pray that we'll look to covenant and seek others rather than satisfying self. There are so many stories scattered throughout these pages, and I pray that we'll have eyes to see them whenever the Holy Ghost chooses to open those eyes and teach us the truths that only can come through him.